When I try to tackle a large project, there's a tendency to resort to extreme measures, like working a long marathon session late into the night. Another extreme approach would be to wake up at 4 a.m., plunge into an ice bath, and start working before most people are awake. For some people, this works, but it turns out I'm not one of those people. And that's okay because I found a different strategy. What seems to work for me is to take small, consistent actions towards my goal every day. I feel less resistance to these short work sessions because they have a clear endpoint. This means I can sustain the practice over longer periods of time. Consistent daily effort pays off quietly over years. I've used this approach with learning how to draw, paint, and mix colors. I've also used this strategy to learn other skills such as video editing, writing, basic programming, and learning other technical skills. It's easy to underestimate how effective this simple approach can be. Let's imagine you're trying to write a book and you don't have any free time. If you were to commit to writing for 30 minutes per day at a scheduled time every single day, you could write a book within a year. Here are the numbers. Let's say you can write 600 words within half an hour. If you write every day for a year, that would amount to 219,000 words. A book averages between 80,000 and 100,000 words, so that's more than enough to write a draft. You would hit 100,000 words within the first 6 months, and then you'd have time left over to make revisions. There are many benefits to this approach. One is that every session will benefit from you being more alert and at your best. We've all experienced what it's like to cram for a test and then have your comprehension totally bottom out. You might read a couple of paragraphs before you realize that you're not comprehending any of it. The problem that I have with working in marathon sessions is that diminishing returns set in rather quickly. After an hour or two, my effectiveness drops. Short work sessions eliminate this issue because the end before diminishing returns have a chance to set in. Over the course of a week, you might have 7 focused sessions that are each 30 minutes long. This is equivalent to 3.5 hours of focused activity where you're operating at 90 to 100% efficiency. I'm far less effective if I try to do the same amount of work in one long work session. Another benefit of working on a large project every day is that I touch base with it every single day. This refreshes the concept in my mind. I find that throughout the day, my mind will frequently return to the project and reflect upon it. New ideas pop into my mind because I don't go more than 24 hours without having spent some time focusing on it. If I were to paint or write only once per week, I would have to refresh my mind as to where I left off, and it might take some time to get started. Additionally, if I have one bad day where I don't seem to be in the zone, it's short-lived. The next day I'll come back to it, and I will probably have more energy and ideas. If I were to have only one long work session per week, it's possible that something could come up and I don't get to work on it for the entire week. This is where there's a danger where I might lose interest in the project simply because I'm not thinking much about it. The daily mini work sessions work well for most of my interests. I use it for completing new projects and learning new skills. When learning something new, you have to work through the basic fundamentals, which can be boring and tedious. Working through the basic exercises on a daily basis breaks down the monotony into tiny bits that are easier to work through and absorb. Most professionals have built up their skills over the course of years and even decades. Having a consistent practice is one of the key factors that will allow you to steadily make progress. There really are no shortcuts. Every professional had to start at the bottom. You might be tempted to skip over the basics and jump into the deep end. But how can you master the advanced material if you haven't worked through the basics? Being consistent allows you to start with the fundamentals and consistently expand your knowledge base. The power of consistent practice should be obvious. Just imagine if you're learning one small thing every day, how much your skills will grow over the course of years. In the beginning, the learning might be difficult, but these skills have a way of compounding over time, allowing you to make connections between things that might seem unrelated. Crack open any beginner programming book and look at the exercises you have to work through in order to become a programmer. Fizz-Buzz is a basic programming exercise that might seem overly simplistic, but working through this exercise teaches you the concepts of repeat loops, conditionals, and other basic concepts. These are the concepts you need to master in order to work on the projects that are more exciting. If you want to learn how to play an instrument, you have to learn how to read music, play scales, and work through some of the very basic songs such as Hot Cross Buns and Mary Had a Little Lamb. This is the same approach I use in my color mixing course, taking one skill that painting requires and breaking it down into smaller, manageable steps. None of these fundamentals are glamorous, and sometimes you just want to push through to the exciting stuff. However, the secret to becoming skilled at anything is to consistently push through these seemingly boring exercises. The best way to acquire those skills is to work through them consistently, and that means developing a daily practice.